A sealed chamber, 18 meters beneath the sands of Giza, was never meant to be found. Yet in early 2025, researchers broke protocol and opened its door. Artifacts inside defy everything Egyptologists believed. Catalogued as S01 and SPH01, they hint at lost rituals and a forgotten world. But before history could be rewritten, fierce controversy and urgent calls for proof erupted. Was this a long-lost chapter of humanity, hidden in plain sight? Or something else entirely? The answers begin where the official record ends. Every archaeological project on the Giza Plateau begins not with a shovel, but with a stamped sheet of paper. The Egyptian Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities holds the sole authority to grant access beneath the world's most scrutinized sands. For any research team, the path to discovery runs through a locked office in Cairo, where permits are issued, reviewed, and filed. The official document, often bearing the blue ink seal of the ministry, lists the project's principal investigators, the precise latitude and longitude of the authorized dig, and the maximum depth allowed. In the case of the 2025 radar survey, the permit authorized non-invasive imaging to a vertical limit of 18.6 meters. Beyond that depth, all activity was strictly prohibited without further review. This document is more than bureaucratic formality. It is a legal boundary, a line that separates sanctioned science from forbidden ground. The permit's date, stamped March 6, 2025, corresponds to the first appearance of the research team's equipment on the plateau. Surveyors logged the coordinates into their instruments, matching them against the ministry's annexed boundary map. Every scan, every dataset, every photograph taken underground was tagged with these coordinates, ensuring that any findings could be traced back to a specific, authorized location. Custodial control is not just a matter of paperwork. Ministry inspectors, sometimes in uniform, sometimes in plain clothes, are present at every stage. They sign off on equipment logs, review daily field notes, and countersign chain of custody sheets for any samples or digital data. The presence of a ministry official is required for the breaking of any seal, the opening of any chamber, and the removal of any artifact. Without their signature, no discovery leaves the ground, and no claim enters the scientific record. The permit itself becomes a character in the story, its authority shaping every decision made below the surface. Researchers know that any deviation from its terms can end a career or result in criminal charges. The official stamp, the project number, the annexed GIS map. These details are the foundation upon which all later claims must rest. In the world of Egyptian archaeology, a discovery without a permit is a rumor. Only with the ministry's stamp does a finding become part of history. As the sun rises over the plateau, the weight of this document is felt in every step taken toward the entrance. The promise of discovery is balanced by the certainty of oversight. Before a single stone is touched, the chain of custody is established, and the official record begins. The world's attention is fixed on what lies beneath, but the story starts above ground, in the ink of an official stamp and the authority it confers. Deep beneath the limestone plateau, the team's first descent catalogued a collection of objects that defied easy classification. The largest, labeled sarcophagus S01 in the field notes, dominated the chamber center. Hewn from a single block of black granite, its surfaces bore a matte patina, interrupted only by crisp, geometric engravings, lines so sharply incised that even after centuries underground, they caught the beam of a torch like polished onyx. The lid, nearly 2 meters long and weighing an estimated 7 tons, displayed no visible means of attachment. No hinges, no locking pins, only the seamless join of lid to base and a faint spiral groove running along the edge, as if the closure itself was part of a larger design. Sarcophagus remained impossibly whole and mute. Nearby, Sphere SAF-01 rested half embedded in the chamber floor. At first glance, it appeared to be a simple stone orb, but closer inspection revealed a network of engraved lines tracing what looked like ancient coastlines. The sphere surface, about 40 centimeters in diameter, had been worn smooth in places, suggesting long exposure to moving hands or tools. The engraved patterns did not match any known dynastic Egyptian cartography. Instead, they followed a logic of their own, jagged in some places, sweeping and sinuous in others, intersected by spiral motifs and geometric grids. The patina within the grooves hinted at great age, with mineral deposits filling the deepest incisions and a faint greenish hue, possibly the result of copper-based tools or environmental leaching over millennia. Coastlines on stone, but not any map we know. Scattered around these two focal points, smaller artifacts lay partially buried in the dust. Fragments of polished stone, some bearing spiral and zigzag carvings, others marked by chisel scars and microstriations, visible only under magnification. Each piece was assigned a catalogue number and a provisional sketch, but the absence of hieroglyphs or recognizable dynastic symbols left their purpose open to speculation. Tool mark analysis began on site, with researchers noting the uniformity of groove depth and the absence of modern abrasion. The edges of the granite sarcophagus, for example, showed a distinctive ripple pattern, suggestive of stone-working techniques not typically associated with Old Kingdom craftsmanship. Tool marks told a different story. Field notes recorded the distribution of objects and the subtle layering of dust and debris atop each surface. The granite sarcophagus bore a thin crust of calcite along its lower edge, while the sphere base was ringed by compacted silt, as if it had been set in place before the chamber was sealed. No organic material was recovered, no wood, textile or bone, leaving only stone and silence. The chamber floor, paved with large fitted slabs, echoed faintly underfoot, hinting at possible voids or subchambers below. Every detail, the weight of the granite, the geometry of the engravings, the unfamiliar coastline etched into the sphere, demanded further analysis. For now, the inventory stood as a silent challenge, raising questions that the next phase of investigation would be forced to confront. Synthetic aperture radar, called SAR, offers a way to look beneath solid stone without breaking ground. In March 2025, an Italian-Scottish research team set up transmitters and receivers near the base of Khafra's pyramid, targeting a grid that covered several hundred meters. The first scans revealed patterns that seemed to defy the usual expectations. Straight lines where geology should be random, sharp right angles where nature tends toward curves. AI-driven algorithms processed the raw radar data, filling in gaps where signal noise or dense rock blocked a clear picture. What emerged was a digital map, more conjecture than photograph, but still anchored in the mathematics of wave reflection and absorption. The largest features traced by the SAR sweeps were cube-shaped voids, each measuring 80 meters on a side. Their outlines appeared at multiple depths, stacked like boxes in a warehouse, with the deepest anomalies registered nearly 200 meters below the surface. Linking these cubes were vertical shafts, some as narrow as 4 meters, others as wide as 10 meters, plunging straight down for hundreds of meters, their paths interrupted by spiral ramps and what looked like relieving chambers. One shaft, mapped directly beneath the northeast corner of the pyramid, ran uninterrupted for over 600 meters, a depth that dwarfs any known burial shaft in Egypt. The AI models colored each chamber and shaft according to signal strength, depth, and inferred material density. The resulting images suggested a network of passageways and rooms, some branching off at odd angles, others aligned with the cardinal points. At the center of the largest cube, a denser region stood out, its edges so sharply defined in the processed data that the team labeled it a probable monolith or sarcophagus, possibly the same feature later referenced in field notes as S01. The software highlighted spiral motifs and geometric grids etched into the walls of these digital chambers, echoing the physical patterns catalogued above ground. The anomalies extended beyond the immediate footprint of the pyramid, hinting at a subterranean spread of up to 2 square kilometers, a scale that challenged the limits of both technology and imagination. Depth metrics pulled from the SAR data placed the uppermost chambers just below the permitted threshold of 18.6 meters, while deeper voids fell far outside the legal boundary for excavation. The AI workflow interpolated missing data where bedrock interference or equipment limitations left blind spots, introducing a degree of uncertainty that even the team's lead geophysicist, Filippo Biondi, acknowledged in his notes. Still, the patterns persisted across multiple scans and processing runs, their geometry too consistent to dismiss as random noise. The radar anomalies, once doubted as artifacts of signal distortion, gained credibility when cross-referenced with legacy ground-penetrating radar and muon tomography data from earlier campaigns. Each new layer of analysis reinforced the impression of a vast artificial complex hidden in the limestone depths. The data presentations, delivered to a packed auditorium in Cairo and streamed worldwide, featured fly-through animations of the underground network, the camera swooping past cube chambers and down vertical shafts, pausing at points where the signal spiked or the geometry grew especially regular. The visuals were captivating, but the voiceover always returned to the caveat. These were models, not photographs, probabilities, not certainties. The claim was extraordinary. A multi-level city beneath the plateau, built on a scale unmatched by any known Old Kingdom project. The absence of direct excavation left room for doubt, but the scale of the anomalies alone demanded attention. hundreds of meters of unbroken shaft, cubes measuring 80 meters, a network mapped by algorithms and colored by the limits of technology. For the first time, the Giza Plateau seemed to offer up a story, written not in stone, but in data. The secrets of the plateau were glimpsed through the lens of digital archaeology. The academic response came swiftly, and with it a barrage of pointed questions. Within days of the SAR data debut, Egyptologists and geophysicists from Cairo to Cambridge demanded to see the unprocessed scans. In closed-door sessions and on public forums, specialists questioned how much of the anomaly mapping was rooted in physics and how much in statistical noise or digital overreach. The Italian-Scottish team, led by Corrado Malanga and Filippo Biondi, found themselves under pressure to release their raw datasets, gigabytes of waveform logs, calibration files, and positional metadata. Without those files, critics argued, every colored chamber and shaft in the animated models remained an interpretation, not a discovery. Peer reviewers flagged the absence of open-access data as a fundamental problem. In emails circulated among editorial boards, leading archaeologists insisted that only full transparency, down to the original radar traces, would allow independent teams to replicate or challenge the findings. The embargo on raw files, justified by the research team as a matter of national security and proprietary technology, only fueled suspicion. The ministry's own guidelines, modeled after international best practices, called for prompt data archiving and third-party verification, especially for claims of this magnitude. But the embargo held, and the debate spilled into the press. Skepticism deepened when news of a failed probe attempt surfaced. The team's first attempt to deploy a fiber optic endoscope through a pre-existing ventilation shaft ended in frustration. The probe snagged on a layer of compacted debris just meters below the surface, its camera lens blinded by limestone dust and silt. The official incident report, filed with the ministry's inspectorate, noted that the shaft was blocked beyond safe reach, and no visual confirmation of the radar anomalies could be obtained. The setback was more than technical. It became ammunition for critics who argued that remote sensing alone could not substitute for direct observation. Legal boundaries added another layer of complexity. Egyptian law prohibits any invasive investigation without explicit written consent, and the 2025 permit, with its strict 18.6-meter depth limit, left no room for improvisation. The ministry's inspectors, present for each attempt to insert a probe, documented the process in real time, recording the probe's serial number, the time of each deployment, and the precise coordinates of every access point. These logs, stamped and signed, became part of the official record, but they also underscored the limits of what could be attempted. When the probe failed, the ministry's response was unequivocal. No further mechanical intervention would be allowed until a multi-agency review could assess the risks. The call for transparency grew louder. Leading journals declined to publish further interpretations without access to the original data. At a hastily convened symposium in Alexandria, a panel of geophysicists outlined the standards required for verification. Independent access to the plateau, multimodal imaging using at least 2 different technologies, and open, peer-reviewed publication of all raw and processed files. Without these steps, they warned, any claim, no matter how spectacular, would remain provisional, suspended between possibility and proof. The debate was no longer just academic. The embargo on data, the failed probe, and the legal constraints combined to create a kind of scientific standoff. Researchers on the ground faced mounting pressure to deliver not just images, but evidence. The tension between discovery and documentation, between promise and proof, now set the terms for every step that would follow. Every sample destined for dating begins its journey in the controlled chaos of the field laboratory. Technicians log each find by context, depth, and precise coordinates, recording the sequence of layers with a detail that borders on obsession. For sediments considered for optically stimulated luminescent sampling, procedures take place only at night or under blackout tents. Workers drive dark plastic tubes into the silt, seal both ends with tape, and slip each tube into a light-proof bag. The goal is to prevent a single photon from resetting the mineral clock. For radiocarbon analysis, the rare appearance of organic remains like charcoal, a seed, or a scrap of textile triggers a different protocol. Each fragment is brushed clean with sterile tools, photographed in situ, and placed in a coded vial. No sample leaves the site without a signed chain of custody form, witnessed by a ministry inspector and logged in the project's digital archive. Back in the laboratory, the process continues under strict conditions. Optically stimulated luminescence tubes are opened only in dark rooms, where technicians extract a core, scrape away the potentially contaminated outer layers, and isolate the untouched center. For radiocarbon analysis, organic samples undergo a series of chemical baths: acid to dissolve carbonates, base to remove humic acids, then acid again to eliminate atmospheric carbon dioxide. The process, known as ABA pretreatment, strips away centuries of contamination. Bone samples, if present, are tested for collagen content and subjected to ultrafiltration, ensuring that only the purest protein is measured. Each step is documented, each result cross-referenced with the original field notes. To guard against laboratory bias, the team splits each sample and sends coded portions to at least 2 independent facilities, often one in Europe and another in North America or Asia. The labs receive only a number, never a site name or context, ensuring that analysis is blind and results are free from expectation. For optically stimulated luminescence, the labs measure the trapped electron charge in quartz or feldspar grains, calculating the last time the sediment was exposed to sunlight. For radiocarbon, accelerator mass spectrometry counts the remaining C14 atoms, returning an age range expressed at the 95% confidence interval, the so-called 2 sigma range. Only results that agree within these broad statistical limits are considered reliable. Interlaboratory comparison is not a formality. In the past, discrepancies of centuries have arisen from overlooked contaminants or misapplied pretreatment. Here, every anomaly is investigated. The labs exchange raw data, repeat measurements, and if necessary, destroy a portion of the sample to rule out error. Each report includes a full account of laboratory methods, calibration curves, and control samples run in parallel. The results are plotted against the stratigraphic log, checked for reversals that might indicate intrusion or reworking, and modeled using Bayesian statistical tools to narrow the calendar date range. The entire process from field collection to final report operates under a system designed to minimize human error and maximize reproducibility. Every sample, whether a grain of sand or a sliver of charcoal, carries a paper trail linking it back to its original context beneath the plateau. The goal is simple: to translate the language of stone and sediment into the language of time, with every precaution taken to ensure that the story told by the data is as close to the truth as science allows. Blind split samples, double signatures, and 2 sigma ranges are not just technicalities. They are the backbone of any claim that seeks to place a discovery on the timeline of history. Petrographic analysis begins with a thin slice of granite, ground to translucence, and examined under polarized light. In the lab, mineralogists compare the sample's crystal structure and trace element composition to known quarry signatures. The black granite from the chamber's sarcophagus, for example, reveals a mineral fingerprint, high concentrations of biotite and amphibole, flecked with magnetite, that matches the Aswan quarry's nearly 900 kilometers to the south. Strontium isotope ratios, measured to the 4th decimal place, confirm the stone's long journey. Each slab, each fragment, is mapped back to its geological source, narrowing the window of plausible construction periods and trade routes. Specialists in stone tool technology scrutinize the groove patterns and ripple marks on the sarcophagus lid. Using high magnification microscopy, they compare these features to experimental cuts made with copper, dolerite, and later iron chisels. The uniform depth and absence of abrasion suggest a technique more advanced than the pounding stones of the Old Kingdom, yet distinct from the rotary saw marks of Ptolemaic workshops. The data point to a moment in time when both the tools and the knowledge to move massive granite blocks converged. An intersection of geology, craft, and logistics. In another corner of the lab, the sphere's engraved coastlines are digitized and imported into GIS software. Oceanographers overlay these contours with Holocene shoreline reconstructions using datasets from the Lambeck and Peltier models. The result is a ghostly match. The sphere's lines echo the outlines of North Africa's ancient lakes and the vanished branches of the Nile Delta, as they would have appeared between 8,000 and 6,000 years ago. The fit is not perfect. Some segments drift, others align with uncanny precision. Debate follows in the margins of the report. Are these the marks of an ancient surveyor, or the product of later imagination? Statistical tools measure the degree of overlap, weighing chance against intention. The sphere's patina, sampled from within the engraved grooves, is dated by uranium-thorium analysis, offering a minimum age for the inscription, though the margin of error remains wide. Archaeoastronomers turn to the sky maps incised on the chamber walls. Using software like Stellarium and SkyMap Pro, they reconstruct the night sky as it would have appeared above Giza during the pre-dynastic and early dynastic periods. The carved patterns, clusters of dots, intersecting lines, spirals, are compared to known celestial arrangements. Orion's belt, the circumpolar stars, the decanal sequences recorded in later Egyptian calendars. Some alignments hold up under scrutiny, others dissolve into ambiguity. The most compelling matches are tested against precessional drift, calculating how stellar positions would have shifted over millennia. The possibility that these carvings encode astronomical knowledge predating the pyramids themselves is raised but never settled. The evidence is tantalizing, yet incomplete. Each specialist's report feeds into a growing matrix of data: quarry signatures, tool marks, shoreline overlays, sky models. The numbers are plotted, the images cross-referenced, the uncertainties logged in footnotes. The process transforms raw measurement into cultural meaning, suggesting connections between the chamber's contents and the wider world of prehistoric Egypt. Yet every conclusion is provisional, every match contested. The threshold for rewriting history remains high. Only when the lines of evidence converge, stone, sky, and shoreline, can the extraordinary claims be weighed against the standards of science. Patrol logs from the Giza Plateau show a spike in activity within days of the radar findings going public. Security teams, already stretched thin by routine tourism and ongoing restoration, doubled their presence along the plateau's perimeter. Reports from March and April 2025 list a series of nighttime patrols, with guards recording unfamiliar vehicles parked near the main access roads. At least 4 incidents involved individuals attempting to cross the outer fence after hours. None reached the excavation grid, but each triggered a formal incident report and a temporary lockdown of the research area. The Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities responded with a visible show of force. Uniformed officers rotated through the site at unpredictable intervals, while plainclothes officials blended with the crowds at the visitor center. A new layer of surveillance cameras, installed along the southern edge of the plateau, fed live footage to a control room in Cairo. Access logs for the main equipment tent now required dual signatures, one from the research lead and one from a ministry inspector, before any sensitive data or hardware could be removed. Rumors of attempted break-ins and artifact thefts circulated quickly, fueled by headlines in local tabloids and speculative posts on social media. Yet no official statement confirmed a breach. Instead, the ministry issued a brief notice reminding the public of the site's protected status and warning of severe penalties for trespassing. Behind the scenes, staff group chats and internal emails reveal a climate of anxiety. Some messages later leaked to reporters and describe heated arguments between ministry officials over how much information should be released. One faction, eager to claim national prestige, pushed for immediate publication of preliminary results. Another, wary of embarrassment or of fueling pseudo-archaeological theories, insisted on a full scientific review before any new data left the country. Tensions were not limited to the ministry. The research team itself faced growing pressure from outside consultants and academic partners. Emails from European colleagues pressed for early access to raw SAR files, citing the risk of data loss or manipulation if the process dragged on. Meanwhile, conservation specialists raised alarms about the possibility of looting, referencing a spike in illicit antiquities trading whenever rumors of a major discovery surface. The need for ethical oversight became urgent. International observers from UNESCO and ICOMOS requested independent verification of security protocols, and Egyptian law required that all finds, real or rumored, be logged, photographed, and kept on site until a multi-agency review. The spectre of looting, never far from any major announcement, haunted every decision. In confidential memos, site managers debated whether to seal off the entire area until the claims could be verified or to risk further leaks by allowing limited outside inspection. For the archaeologists on the ground, the pressure was immediate and personal. Each day began with a checklist: verify the integrity of equipment, confirm the presence of all catalogued artifacts, and log any signs of disturbance. The discovery had become more than a scientific puzzle. It was now a flashpoint for institutional conflict, public fascination, and the ever-present threat of theft. In this atmosphere, every action was scrutinized, every decision carried weight, and the demand for credible, transparent science grew with each passing hour. No archaeological discovery, no matter how spectacular, enters the historical record without meeting a strict evidentiary bar. In the wake of the Giza radar findings, calls have grown for a new standard, one that goes beyond dramatic images and into the realm of reproducible science. At the center of this debate is a proposal from a multinational oversight committee. Before any claim can rewrite history, it must satisfy 5 converging lines of proof, each independently verified and open to scrutiny. The first requirement is in situ confirmation. Remote sensing alone is not enough. Direct visual documentation, whether photographs or video captured with verifiable timestamps and coordinates, must show the chamber, artifacts, and context exactly as found. The second requirement is stratigraphic integrity. Excavators must demonstrate, through detailed logs and cross-sectional diagrams, that the features and objects are undisturbed, sealed by layers that can be traced and dated. Any intrusion, backfill, or later disturbance must be recorded and explained, or the claim fails at the outset. Third, all physical samples must undergo blind interlaboratory testing. Whether the material is granite, sediment, or organic residue, each sample is split and sent to at least 3 accredited laboratories on different continents. Results are reported without context, coded only by number, and only those findings that agree within the 2 sigma range are considered valid. This process guards against laboratory bias and ensures that no single institution can sway the outcome. Fourth, the chain of custody must be unbroken and fully documented. Every sample, artifact, and data file must be logged from the moment of recovery, with signatures from both local authorities and international observers. Any gap, any missing form disqualifies the evidence from consideration. The fifth and final criterion is multidisciplinary convergence. The claim must stand up not only in the field, but in the lab and the library. Geological analysis must match quarry signatures. Tool marks must fit the known technologies of the era. Carved symbols and star maps must be tested against astronomical models and paleogeographic reconstructions. Only when all 5 points align, direct observation, stratigraphic integrity, independent laboratory agreement, unbroken chain of custody, and multidisciplinary convergence, can a discovery be said to meet the threshold for historical revision. This checklist is not theoretical. It has been adopted in draft form by a consortium of Egyptologists, geophysicists, and UNESCO heritage officials, all of whom have stakes in the outcome. The Italian-Scottish team's data, while provocative, remains under embargo until these standards are met. The Oversight Committee, which includes representatives from Egypt, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States, has called for full release of raw data, open access to the site, and a moratorium on further claims until the 5-point bar is cleared. In the world of archaeological science, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the Giza Plateau now stands as a test case for how the past is written or rewritten under the watchful eyes of the world. For viewers and experts alike, the path forward is clear but steep. Only by meeting each requirement, without exception or shortcut, can this discovery move from the realm of possibility to the pages of history. Until then, the story remains open, a challenge to future investigators, and a reminder that the weight of proof is as heavy as the stones beneath the pyramids themselves. Today, the sands of Giza conceal more questions than answers. With no peer-reviewed data or official excavation permits, the truth remains just out of reach. As technology advances, speculation outpaces consensus, and every unverified claim fuels a global appetite for mystery. In a world blurred by rumor and revelation, what we choose to believe beneath these stones may shape how we understand the past and what we dare to imagine about ourselves.